Chapter 282, Ice Snow Lotus. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. At the time, the students of the Saint Academy were all laughing at me, judging me as a madcap and ignorant idiot. They said even though Liu Xu entered the Saint Academy 200 years ago, there wouldn't be another Liu Xu from a small place like Omen Ridge, for at least 200 years. In the beginning, I didn't believe them. I had just managed to cultivate a conqueror who could punch their teeth through the back of their arrogant skulls. Unfortunately, the more I hoped, the greater my disappointment was. Over the past 5 decades, only a handful of highly talented young men emerged in the Omen Ridge. A couple of them were even more outstanding than Si Xingkong and Jiang Tangai. However, they were inferior compared to the brilliant figures from the Saint Academy. 2 of them entered the Saint Academy and I told both of them not to tell others that they were my disciples. Zhang Yuochen said, "You were worried that they might be oppressed by your enemies?" Lei Jing nodded. Like a small pebble tossed into the vast ocean, an unimpressive student would have little effect on the Saint Academy, let alone bring big storms. It's good enough for my 2 disciples to be able to protect themselves there. Later, as they got older, they were no longer as impulsive as before and even lost their passion with time. Eventually I wondered if I met a genius and sent him to the Saint Academy, would it be good to tell others that he was my disciple? Would it be harmful to him? At this point, my last passion ran out. 50 years had passed. Would anyone remember? Moreover, for warriors from a small place like the Omen Ridge, they were doomed to be inferior to descendants of the half-saint or saint families. But when you appeared I began to have help again. With your talents you could be the best in the Saint Academy. If you one day exert great influence in the Saint Academy, I can return and wave it in my old classmates' noses. I can proudly tell them I've made it. Is that what you want me to do? Asked Zhang Yuochen. Don't you want to? Said Lei Jing. Your enemies must be big shots. Don't you worry, they might one day retaliate against me, said Zhang Yuochen. Lei Jing understood Zhang Yuochen's words and feelings. He had already prepared for Zhang Yuochen's rejection. Lei Jing took a long breath and sighed. You have the option to refuse me. After all, there is no benefit for you at all. It may even lead to your death. After 50 years, Lei Jing's way of thinking had changed considerably. He was no longer obstinate and radical. There were so many things to consider now that he was an old man. Lei Jing took out a jade box from his clothes. He handed it to Zhang Yuochen. This box contains a 500-year-old ice snow lotus. It can help you break through to the final state of the Earth realm. If you do enter the Saint Academy in the future, the competition will be cruel. So practice diligently. Finishing his words, he rose to leave. Wait a minute. Holding the jade box in hands, Zhang Yuochen said, I owe you a favor. I promised to pay you back and I have no reason not to. Lei Jing's eyes lit up. So you've decided to be my disciple, and to enter the Saint Academy with this identity? Aren't you afraid of hostility from the Saint families? Zhang Yuochen smiled and replied, the Saint families and the poor have been antagonistic toward each other since ancient times. A prince though I am, disciples from the Saint families treat me, an inferior commander's prince, as a low and poor person. I don't think they would treat me well if I were not your disciple. Lei Jing laughed loudly and clasped his hands on Zhang Yuochen's shoulders. Don't worry. With your talents, when you enter the Saint Academy people will pay attention to you. The Saint family descendants won't dare to mess with you. Do you know why I said I would only admit you as my disciple if you reached the top 100 of the Earth board? Zhang Yuochen replied, because only the top 100 of the Earth board can be taken seriously by the top managers of the Saint Academy, so that I can be safe. That's right, Lei Jing said. But I wasn't expecting you to have the ability not only to leap to the top 100 of the Earth board but also the top 10. You are very promising. You should refine the Ice Snow Lotus and break through the realm first rather than conduct the 3rd test. Once Zhang Yuochen broke the realm, his power would advance greatly. He would achieve more than merely entering the top 100 of the Earth board. Zhang Yuochen opened the jade box slowly. An icing cold air wafted out of the box, and immediately the surrounding temperature dropped. Inside, A jade-like crystal snow lotus gave off a faint herbal scent. It is a 500-year-old ice snow lotus with 5 petals. Zhang Yuochen gave a happy look and put one petal into his mouth. Like a thin ice crystal, the instant he put it into his mouth, the petal melted and turned into a stream of ice that flowed down to his belly. Ice snow lotus's potency was strong. It filled all of Zhang Yuochen's meridians quickly and froze his genuine qi. He immediately sat on the floor with his legs crossed. He brought his palms together above his head. He silently chanted the scripture of Emperor Ming's Empyrean in his heart. Spiritual fire genuine qi ran slowly through his body. Generally speaking, a 500-year-old ice snow lotus could help a completion warrior of the earth realm advance quickly to the heaven realm. Yet Zhang Yuochen, a more talented warrior, needed more resources to help break through the realm. It was the right time to break into the final state of the earth realm with the ice snow lotus. It took him 2 hours to refine one petal's potency completely. 10 hours and 5 petals later, his genuine qi swelled to the utmost extent. Plumes of spiritual qi like thin snakes flowing throughout his body were visible to the naked eye. He swallowed a lotus seed picked from the ground and prepared himself for the last spurt. I never imagined he would need so many resources to break through the final state of the earth realm. No common warrior can compare to him. Lei Jing had thought 5 petals would be enough, yet the actuality was beyond his expectation. An ice snow lotus seed was still not enough to break the realm. He needed more. It's crunch time for him. Lei Jing took out a drop of sacred liquid. Like a dazzling star, the sacred liquid suspended just above the tip of his fingertip. Lei Jing pointed it to Zhang Yuochen's glabella. The sacred mark emerging on his glabella quickly absorbed the liquid. Bam! The chi in his glabella extended 17 times with a soft thudding sound. Finally, he'd reached the final state of the earth realm. The spiritual qi which had been drifting throughout his body was attracted by the power. It rushed into his glabella and the qi. After a moment, Zhang Yuochen stood up again and stretched his body, feeling himself full of energy. Now he could beat a heaven realm warrior. It was awesome. Thank you for your help, master. Zhang Yuochen took a bow. In fact, what Lei Jing could teach Zhang Yuochen was rather limited. Yet he still deserved Zhang Yuochen's gratitude for lending help. Although he hadn't taught Zhang Yuochen anything, he had treated him as his disciple. Lei Jing smiled. Do you need to test your power and speed again? Number. I can see my present ability clearly. Zhang Yuochen replied. Lei Jing asked, which rank did you manage to challenge in the 3rd test? The 100th. Replied Zhang Yuochen. Lei Jing was slightly shocked. Didn't you defeat her in the 2nd test? Yes. But I want to try again to compare how many strikes it takes me, said Zhang Yuochen. Well, that's your decision. Lei Jing replied. Again, Zhang Yuochen entered the secret test room where he met Yan Qingwu, 100th on the earth board. With a battle sword in hand, Yan Qingwu walked out from the stone wall. She gazed at Zhang Yuochen. It's you again? Why? We didn't finish the last battle. Naturally I am here to challenge you again, he said. Yan Qingwu gave a cool eye. Okay. I hadn't expected you to possess such advanced skills in the last competition. You chopped off my combat sword. I won't let that happen again. I don't think the heart integrated into Sword Realm is flawless. Warriors who entered the top 100 of the Earth board were unbeatable kings in their own territories. Yan Qingwu had not been defeated since she was a little girl. She had confidence in her ability, even facing a warrior who had reached the heart integrated into sword. Lifting an arm, Yan Qingwu performed her first technique with the sword. This technique often confused people. They didn't know whether she was about to attack or defend. After the last battle, they had developed a deep understanding of each other. They chose techniques leisurely this time,